Well, President Trump hosted the nation's governors at the White House yesterday, where they discussed school safety in the wake of the Florida school shooting. In the meeting, the president promised executive action to make bump stocks so difficult to purchase they would be, quote, gone. He also emphasized the need to fund mental institutions for people making violent threats like the Florida school shooter. And he revealed that he recently met with leaders of the NRA and believes they would take quick action to support new gun restrictions.
I had lunch with Wayne LaPierre, Chris Cox, and David Lehman of the NRA. And I want to tell you, they want to do something. And I said, fellas, we got to do something. It's too long now. We got to do something. And we're going to do very strong background checks. Very strong. We've got to do background checks. If we see a sicko, I don't want him having a gun. And, you know, I know there was a time when anybody could have. I mean, even if they were sick, they were fighting. And I said, fellas, we can't do it anymore. And there's no bigger fan of the Second Amendment than me, and there's no bigger fan of the NRA. And these guys are great patriots. They're great people. And they want to do something. They're going to do something. When we see somebody is sick like this guy, when the police went to see him, they didn't do a good job, but they have restrictions on what they can do. We got to give them immediate access to taking those guns away so that they don't just leave and he sit there with 7 different weapons. Got to give them immediate access. Don't worry, you're not going to get any. You won't. Don't worry about the NRA. They're on our side. You guys, half of you are so afraid of the NRA. There's nothing to be afraid of. And you know what? If they're not with you, we have to fight them every once in a while. That's okay.
Well, gee, that's interesting coming from Donald Trump and a Republican president. But there are a few of those things that he mentioned that a lot of people would have loved to see after Newtown. So if we have strong, expanded background checks, if we figure out a way as a country to take guns out of the hands of those who are mentally ill and shouldn't be having a gun, I mean, to me, that sounds like a step forward. What do you think?
Yeah, of course it would be a step forward. And I think, you know, I think there are other steps, common sense steps that should be taken that go beyond that the NRA would hate. But sure, if we could do those things, I think we ought to do them and do them now. I wonder, however, if the president heard Wayne LaPierre's speech last week at CPAC when he was foaming at the mouth and basically saying, you know, anybody who says we ought to do anything is a socialist who's trying to destroy America. I think the members of Congress who heard the president probably feel they have a lot of reasons to be afraid of the NRA. And until that equation, now, you know, maybe Donald Trump has the sort of stature or authority or is in a position to buck the NRA if he wants to. But do you really think he wants to? Do you really think he's going to do it? You know, one has to believe it when one sees it.
Well, if history is a guide, he won't do it.
Exactly.
Certainly, he's bounced back and forth on Dreamers. He's talked about what he's wanted to do, and which I actually believe he wants to do, and then he's pushed back by his own base and scared by his own base. But Heidi,
or just Miller.
I had a long conversation with one of the smartest people I know when it comes to gun laws and gun rights. He's as fiercely pro Second Amendment as anybody I know, and we were just having a talk last week. And I said, okay, well, so where is the meeting ground? And he actually said, because the meeting ground is where the NRA's already said the meeting ground is, which is they said they were fine with bump stocks at first. Why don't we have a law on, why hasn't Congress moved on bump stocks? And they said, why hasn't Congress moved on the Cornyn bill? Yeah, the Cornyn-Murphy bill. He said the NRA has told Congress, that's fine. Go on the Cornyn-Murphy bill. It closes a lot of loopholes. It makes background checks better. Wayne LaPierre even said in '99 he supported stronger background checks. And yet Congress, even with the president saying move, even with the NRA saying move, like the president said, are so scared of their own shadow when somebody whispers the NRA, they won't even do things that the NRA said is okay to do. What's going on?
But Joe, We don't know exactly what's happening behind the scenes when the NRA says it actually supports these things. Guess what? The fixed NICS aspect was a part of the Manchin-Toomey bill back in 2012 that the NRA helped kill. So we cannot underestimate the pressure and the iron fist of what is happening with the NRA behind the scenes with these lawmakers. You just look at what's happening here. We have a very short window in the aftermath of these tragedies to act. And you read the faces and the statements of these lawmakers. For instance, Joe Manchin, who really put himself out there coming from a red state the last go-around, will not even commit to being a champion this time. Now, he's got a tough election coming up, but I think that is very telling. It's very telling that the #2 ranking Republican, John Cornyn, will not back this president when it comes to increasing the age for purchasing semi-automatic firearms. And then just to get into the weeds on the fixed NICS, yes, to your point, then we've got profound dysfunction within the Congress, whereby the Republicans, there are some Republicans who look at that, it's a modest measure, and yet they still have issues with due process. And then Democrats who say it's not enough. And there we are left in the same darn position that we've been in the aftermath of every single one of these tragedies.
Nothing done.